Hi, I'm Andrea Klim, and you are watching Turn to the Stars. And today is Tuesday, June 16th, and we are on a new moon in Gemini. And that was the topic of last week's show. So that theme has already begun. And today, though, I'm going to push us forward here and give us some idea of what's coming up with each day as that full moon energy, the energy of the light of the moon grows in light. And so we're going to be talking about the energy influence of the Capricorn full moon. And the question that I have for all of you, are you ready for a perfect storm? And the reason I say that is because the moon, that full moon, is going to be right beside Pluto. And Pluto is a planet that is intense, powerful, and I'm going to go really deep into that during today's show. And the date of that full moon is July 1st of this year, 2015. And so today being June 16th, new moon, this new theme that we've experience that has been coming into our lives is very prominent. And so today's topic is going to be the Capricorn full moon, the North Node in Libra, the South Node in Aries, and the full moon on July 1st, 2015, which is going to be, like you heard me say right before, right beside Pluto in the constellation of Capricorn, opposite the Sun and Mars in Cancer. But before I begin today's show, I wanted to just say a quick, short, take a moment of silence to really honor and put out some real healing light for my producer of today's show. Her daughter, Sierra, is having laser surgery on her spine. And so I'd ask everyone if you could just take a moment and say a prayer for her to heal quickly and for this to be over, the pain and suffering that she's had. So that was really important. Marcherie is a lovely lady and her daughter is Sierra. So I appreciate that very, very much. And so next in line, also one of the topics that I wanted to add that I'm going to be talking about on today's show is Venus and Jupiter in Leo. They are going to actually trine Uranus on this full moon, which is Capricorn, July 1st, which equals relief. And I love when I see those aspects. The background that you actually see behind me today is a video that I personally took last year of Diana's bath up in North Conway. It is a beautiful, beautiful, picturesque landscape of our Mother's nature. And as I said before, last week my show was on the new moon that is occurring today, June 16th in Gemini. And the theme that we are all experiencing presently and is growing daily is one of communication, language, and planning, and most importantly, the acceptance and the hearing of the different ways we must let it be. What we cannot control. So the things that we cannot control, we have to really learn how to just let them be. That's very hard for people that are used to fixing things for other people because they hate to see them suffer. So it's very hard to just let it be. However, it's so important. If the words we speak, no matter how nice or how smart or how hard we think these things out, are not being heard, it's very important. This theme of Gemini, of this new moon, really does remind us that we must take a different approach. Gemini is a very, very important intellectual, intelligent sign, and sometimes it means that we need to think about the other side of something, entering through the back door instead of the front door. And that is exactly what the Gemini energy has the ability to do. And so now let's talk about the energy of the full moon. which is coming on July 1st. So we have this new moon today. Every single day, the experience of this energy of Gemini, that duality, that intelligence, that communication, that expression is going to grow, and our experiences are going to grow. And by the time the full moon comes on July 1st in the constellation of Capricorn, and as you heard me say before, I'm labeling it a perfect storm with a purpose. So I have a picture of that full moon on the screen, and you can see it highlighted in the top left corner there with the darkening, and you can see the moon, the crescent, at 9 degrees of Capricorn, and right beside it we see Pluto retrograde at 14 degrees of Capricorn. And the energy of this full moon brings us back in time historically. You hear me talk a lot about this on the show, and this is actually something that I learned from Tad Mann, A.T. Mann, a world-known astrologer for his theories and for his publishing of at least 16 books, and I know he's the co-author of many books on other books as well. However, this particular full moon at 9 degrees of Capricorn historically, energetically, takes us back to the time of June of 1763, just before the Revolutionary War. And with that said, I have a story to tell you. If you think about energy that is associated with a revolutionary war, then and you also think about Pluto right next to it, what I think energetically, astrologically, what these planets are saying is that it is time for us to look at the surface of things, to look at our prejudices, to look at our political standpoints, and to look at what's not working, and let's see what does work. And I have a little story to share with you. I tape this show from Manchester, New Hampshire, but this show is also on in Derry, New Hampshire, and also on YouTube. And this story that I'm going to tell you is real. It is something that happened to me. And the last 2 weeks, I've experienced some incredible abuse as well as some incredible kindness. And I'm telling you this because I think it's important for people to hear this. My daughter is 17 years old, and she has a handicap, and due to her handicap, she cannot carry anything heavy or walk far carrying anything of any weight. And I'm not handicapped, but she has something that she must manage carefully or make a decision to have invasive surgery on her brain. So every day I drive to Pinkerton Academy, and I do my best to arrive before the short buses so as not to disturb the flow of traffic. Last week, and actually 2 times last week, due to my TV show recording schedule and another day because of my work schedule, I arrived late to pick her up. And there was 2 crossing guards who stood outside the entrance to the handicap parking lot, which is the Astro Cafe entrance. They refused to let me in to pick up my daughter. And it really just was terrible. I've been going there all year long to pick up my daughter. I am not handicapped. My daughter is. I have to pick her up in order for her to be well. She cannot go far. So I explained to the crossing guards that my daughter is handicapped, and they said that I would have to pay and go to the motor vehicle department and pay for a handicap sticker from the DMV in order to come in there. And I said, what? I said, this is crazy. I'm not handicapped. So I refused to move. My daughter's handicap is severe, and this was really unfair. So I refused to move my car. I sat there. I said, I've been coming here all year long. Finally, because I would not move out of the street, the man crossing guard let me through. He said, just go ahead. And the woman that was standing there with me began mocking me and would not. I asked her for her name, and she wouldn't give me her name. I was horrified by their behavior. These are, our children. I called and I spoke to the secretary of the headmaster of Pinkerton Academy, and his name is Headmaster Griffin Morse, the nicest man. He apologized to me over and over, and he gave me a special pass to ensure I was able to pass and pick up my daughter the next day. Very next day, it got worse, and these two crossing guards mocked the headmaster, and they upset me so much that they still wouldn't let me pass. They made me sit in the middle of the street and would not let me into the handicap parking area. And I was so upset that I popped a blood vessel in my eye. And I called the headmaster from the parking lot once I got in, because I refused to move, so they finally let me in, mocking me the whole way. I called the headmaster, and his secretary said that she would send him down right away. The next day, my husband came with me because I was so scared of what they might do next. Thankfully, it was eventless. My point for telling you this story is that humanity as a whole has become so injured, so lost to abuse from not only this lifetime, but many, many before. And they then become like a soulless being, and they abuse, and the abuse that they experience and they hated so much, that they dislike so much, becomes who they are. They become an empty shell of a person. Their light becomes very dim. They just succumb to the abuse. And so it's very important that we do not allow ourselves, it's very important that we recognize that we do not allow ourselves to become invisible anymore, and that we do speak up. We do use this energy of Gemini to speak up for what we believe in, and to protect our families and our children through love, and not through hate and continuation of abuse. So, I wanted to tell you this story on TV today because this full moon that is coming in Capricorn has the ability, as you heard me say, to be create the perfect storm that we need to remove this layer of abuse and, unfairness. And since I am the, as you see, a TV talk show host here, both in Manchester and in Derry, and because my story is like many others, I do encourage you, because to tell others your story, and because my story is like many others, I encourage everyone out there who's watching this to use your words, talk to who you need to, and if that doesn't work, take a different approach. My point is, never ever give up. Teach your children how to speak up. Teach them how to organize their thoughts and their feelings. Capricorn is the teacher. This full moon coming up is about teaching. It's about breaking down the status quo. What does it matter as long as we are not hurting anybody? I wasn't doing anything wrong. They made up their own set of rules because of their inside, whatever they have going on inside of them that they feel is for some reason, they felt like they had this control, which they were completely out of their realm in what they were doing. So my point is teach your children to talk about their thoughts and their feelings and not accept that it's okay to be treated with abuse. In order to survive, many people, and for me also, I have to say, for most of my life, I've made myself invisible just to get by. My point is that this full moon coming up on July 1st at 9 degrees in the constellation of Capricorn, and if we could put that up on the screen again, John, that would be great, that picture of the full moon. We can see that over there. This is in what we call the 12th house of the chart, which is the unknown, the unseen, karma, things that have been buried for a long, long, long time. And you can see the planet Pluto right next to it, the planet which I call the planet of power or invisibility. So this energy every day, as the light of that moon grows in the night sky, we see the moon growing in its light. And at its peak on July 1st, at exactly 9:30 at night, you're going to see that full moon in Capricorn. This energy, what it's going to do, what it has the potential to do, is to help us to become visible instead of invisible. It won't allow the surface we created of control, and it won't force us to feel as if we have to adhere to someone else's abuse or their control, especially when they have no right to behave so badly. And the interesting thing, if I could put that chart up one more time on the screen of the full moon, there it is. Thanks, John. The trine that you see between Jupiter, if you look over to the right side of the screen, you see probably about 3 o'clock on the dial. You'll see Venus, the blue planet, in the constellation of Leo, and right next to it is Jupiter. When Jupiter and Venus align, wonderful things happen. And you've heard me say this before. The protectors of the Holy Grail come together. Those who are brave, those who speak from their heart, those who are courageous. And what happens, if you can see on that chart, there's these blue lines that reach right down to Uranus, the planet of awakening and change. And so what this tells us is that there is this courage, there's this strength, and there's this creative perspective, and alternative ideas are evident, which will surface and help us to realize how we can manage these difficult avenues that we're being faced with individually and as a whole. The resolve that we seek is there for the taking. So that's what this chart, the message of this full moon chart is incredibly positive. The nurturance and kindness that we require is available, and we can find justice if we just seek it. And I have a video for you I'm going to play that I filmed this past weekend. I was in Gloucester, Massachusetts, caring for just visiting and spending some time with my elderly father-in-law. And I have a little Jack Russell that wakes me up at 6 a.m. every morning to go for a walk. And so what I filmed was something really incredible. And the message, I'm going to tell you the message after you watch this. So I'm going to play this little video and then come right back. Egrets, June 13th, 2015, early morning, Gloucester. Fourth one just came in. So beautiful. Looks like they're doing a dance. The dance of the... So what you saw there was 3 egrets, and these are white birds, which is a very high spiritual energy. There were 3 egrets that were just kind of poking around, getting some food in the cove area, and apparently it was 2 females and 1 male, and another male came in, and they had a little argument. I called it the dance of the egrets. They had a little argument about who was the king and who was going to be in charge of both of the females there. And so it's interesting because in the sacred arts, shamanic practices, egrets are one of the birds that say, I don't mess around. If I want something, I'm going to go straight for it. And that is exactly what you saw in that video. They spread their wings and they fight for it. So that's what I'm encouraging everyone to do with your words. Use your words, use your ideas, your thoughts, your genius. Gemini is the sign of the genius, the intelligent one, the scientist, the one that can look at both sides of things and understand and help to work things out. That is a very positive use of the Gemini energy. And nature is so beautiful if we just listen. it delivers the messages we need to hear. Now, I want to give you just a little bit more information about the full moon chart before we move on, because I did promise you at the beginning of the show that I would talk about the nodes and about some of the other influences of this full moon that's coming up on July 1st. So if we could put that back up on the screen, the full moon chart. There it is. Thanks, John. What you see there to the left is the full moon in Capricorn at 9 degrees. You see a red line right across the middle to the Sun and Mars in the constellation of Cancer. And then we see a red line that goes up to around 1 o'clock on the chart. That is what looks like a horseshoe, and that is the north node of the moon, which shows the direction that we seek as a whole, the direction that humanity is seeking. This is what I call the natural zodiac chart, and that north node in Libra is showing that it is so important that we seek peace in our lives, that we let it be, that we do not force our way, our will on other people, that we work, at letting things be, listening to other people, talking things through. And it's really hard because what we see in this chart is a T-square. And the south node in Aries is indicative that many people feel very insecure in themselves right now. They feel very insecure in their own knowingness of who they are. So people are reaching out to learn about themselves. And so ultimately, it's very important that we seek the help of people around us only though when they ask for it, that we don't force it on them. That's what these nodes are talking about. It's interesting because this past week, last week, on Thursday, or was it Wednesday, I think, we took our daughter into Boston to see Florence and the Machine, and it was right on the coast, and it really was a really, I would have to say, interesting concert. Florence and the Machine is excellent. However, the crowd that was there was, I would describe it as where we were sitting, we had to get up and move because somebody fell on me, because there was a lot of people escaping, drinking, so on. These things go on at concerts, but we got up and moved. And the interesting thing that happened that I want to mention, though, is the person that fell on me apologized to me over and over and over. She felt so bad, this young girl, and I think she probably had too much to drink. And then there was another girl that where we moved to was holding her friend up on a chair, and there was this song that Florence was singing about breaking up, in partnerships, and how hard it is to let go when you've gotten close to somebody and then you've gotten hurt. So her friend was standing on a chair and she was holding her up, and she turned and she looked at me, and I'm not sure why, but she said she just broke up with her boyfriend, and I just broke up with my boyfriend not long ago. So this song really does touch our hearts. And I said, you know what, hold your friend up. We all need that every now and then. And so it really was an interesting concert. But the nodes of the moon, where we're going, is all about peace, harmony, relationships, working things out as hard as it may be, and not controlling it, not trying to be in control, doing what you need for yourself in order for you to find that sense of peace and balance. So one of the things near the end of the show that I want to bring to the light is some things coming up here. Turn of the Stars is changing a lot this year since I have a producer here that helps me with the show. And so I have the schedule. I'm going to put it up on the screen for the next 2 weeks, what's coming up. You can see that next week on June 30th, I'm going to have my producer of the show, and she's also going to be the guest, Marcherie Chappelle, and she is going to be talking about healing the shadows within you. This is such an important topic between now and August astrologically. We all have shadows. We all have things that we need to learn about ourselves and how to transmute. And then on July 7th, I'm going to be doing a show myself on the Cancer new moon. So these are exciting things that are coming up at Turn to the Stars TV. And I want everyone to, I just want to pass on the word again. Turn to the stars, and you will find your answers there. Your birth chart holds all the answers to your soul's, your life's journeys before, now, and in this lifetime, from the time of your conception throughout the whole time that your mother carried you, and your birth, and exact moments in time in your life where you had experiences that were life-changing. And so astrology is the most incredible tool. So turn to the stars and you will find your answers there. And as I've been taught by my daughter's, one of her Latin teachers, Mr. Oklavicus, he said to me in an email one day, he said, "Cura ut valias," and it means take care that you be well. So take care that you be well, cura ut valias. And until next week, I hope that you're all well and have a great week. I'll see you then.